Of all the famous sightings in Acadia National Park, one stands out in terms of supernatural encounters. Schooner Head is a huge outcrop of stone jutting into the Atlantic. While the land is private property, the natural formation and its stunning views are easily visible from the Schooner Head lookout and from a park trail that goes directly down to the shore. Few who visit the spot know the history of horror hanging over Schooner Head and the land around it. A ghost ship with a terrifying wraith factors into this past, and so does a death cave ringing with the cries of the drowned. As if all these were not enough, the place also contains a fatal mansion. The first set of ghost sightings concerns the origin of the name given to Schooner Head. One theory holds that the name comes from the way the whitish face of the rock resembles a schooner ship in full sail. The only problem is that this resemblance is by no means apparent without a huge stretch of the imagination. The other theory involves a ghost ship, a phantom schooner, as the source of the name. Supporting this claim are the reoccurring sightings over the centuries of a ghost ship in this precise location. Thinking they were seeing a real sailing vessel, the British fired upon the phantom schooner during the War of 1812. The same thing happened earlier during the presidency of Thomas Jefferson, when a federal gunboat was chasing a smuggler's craft. The smugglers disappeared into the fog in Frenchman Bay. When the ghost ship appeared, the federal agents mistook it for the smuggler's boat and let loose a volley of cannon fire that left its mark on the battered face of Schooner Head. Even earlier, sailors reported sightings of the phantom schooner, quote, flitting in the moonlight off the rocks of Schooner Head. And so have rum runners during Prohibition. When the time and conditions are right, anyone who is out at Schooner Head might witness the return of this ghost ship. The optimum conditions are a moonlit night with a bank of fog slowly engulfing the land. The flickering appearance of the phantom schooner is unmistakable. Silvery in the moonlight, the large four-masted vessel bears down on the rocks of Schooner Head, eventually crashing into the land. Before the ghost ship manifests its destruction, the atmosphere changes drastically over the area of Schooner Head. A feeling of nameless dread grows with increasing intensity. Anyone close enough will see a figure at the wheel of the vessel. This is the White Woman, or the quote, weird helmsman, as she was reported in the Bar Harbor Record back in 1885. The vision of this specter has etched itself into the minds of those who have seen her. The ghost is on her knees before the wheel of the doomed ship. The dark hair of the phantom streams into the wind, and her skin is ghastly white, like a corpse from the sea. The story of this wraith goes back to a pirate ship filled with rich stores of gold looted in the West Indies. With this fortune, the pirates came to Mount Desert Island, where they had a secret stash. On board was a dark-haired woman who supposedly doomed the ship, for back then sailors considered women and clergymen unlucky on a voyage. The woman was the wife of the pirate skipper, whose crew now numbered 13. Reaching Mount Desert Island, the pirates encountered a heavy fog, then a British warship. Hoping to elude the warship by pulling into Otter Cove, they overshot their mark and crashed onto the rocks of Schooner Head. When disaster struck, the skipper's wife fell to her knees and prayed for salvation, but the unforgiving rocks split the schooner apart. The angry sea dragged the pieces down into oblivion. The British sailors on the nearby warship witnessed the whole event in speechless wonder. Close by lurked the horrors of Anemone Cave. Unlike Schooner Head, this natural formation lies within the borders of Acadia National Park. Anyone is free to visit the site, yet officials have taken down the sign that pointed out the location of the Anemone Cave because too many people drowned there. If you go, restrict your visit to a very short window, a half hour before low tide to a half hour after low tide. All depends on the conditions of the seas, with their tendency to send surging walls of water into the coast. Too often, victims of the cave have realized they cannot escape the cold surge and fierce battering inside the granite cavern. On certain nights, the dead can be heard talking inside the dark interior of Anemone Cave. The experience of hearing these faint voices is unforgettable and deeply disturbing, for the spirits all convey the utmost note of suffering and despair. Sometimes these ghosts replay their final torment by crying out and gasping for breath. Other times, the cave echoes the faraway sound of voices sobbing for the release of their souls. Most dreadful of all are the sounds of something, like a human body, being battered against the inside of the cavern by the incoming waves. Some believe that the dead hope to lure the people into the cave, to exchange one life for the release of a trapped soul. The cursed heritage of this region finds its pinnacle in a lethal mansion wrapped in a spell of darkness. This house is not the large residence of recent origin built on the very tip of Schooner Head. Instead, the doomed mansion dates from 1912 and stands alone in the shadows of Champlain Mountain. Perched on the rocky bluffs of Frenchman Bay, the house commands a sweeping view of the Porcupine Islands, the Goldsboro Hills, the Shudik Peninsula, and the open ocean. The mansion, called High Seas, can be glimpsed from Schooner Head Road, but the property is not open to the public. During the Great Fire of 1947, the flames literally went around High Seas, leaving the mansion completely untouched, although the fire swept away every single other house on the road. High Seas grew out of a doomed love affair linked to the greatest sea disaster of all time. Rudolf Brunau, a German professor of ancient studies at Princeton University, built the house while courting Edith Evans. In their hikes out to Schooner Head, the couple found the area so captivating that Brunau eventually purchased the 12-acre lot. He proposed marriage, but Edith asked for some time to consider. She liked her freedom and was not quite ready to take over Brunau's household. He was a widower with 5 children. Edith then traveled to Europe while Rudolf went ahead and had the house built. The 30-room Gregorian-style mansion has no lawn, for the giant residence clings to the rocks above the roiling sea. Fred Savage designed the stately residence, built of tapestry bricks and containing a host of wonders, including a secret chamber. Almost from the start, High Seas was enveloped in a dark cloud of tragedy. When the mansion was completed, Rudolf Brunau sent for Edith Evans, and this time she accepted his proposal, boarding an ocean liner from Liverpool, England, to New York. Unfortunately, Edith never lived to see the mansion on Schooner Head Road, because the ship she embarked on was the Titanic. She drowned with more than 1,500 others on the night of April 15, 1912. Her death was famous at the time because she voluntarily gave her seat in a lifeboat to another woman who had children. Even before Edith died, people on Mount Desert Island reported seeing strange lights around High Seas, a phantom luminescence that came and went in the night. As always, the fog dragged in a nameless dread that seemed to hover over the place. When he learned of the death of the woman he loved, Brunau was devastated, yet a mountain slide of misfortune lay just ahead. In the fall of 1916, Brunau's son contracted polio and died 2 days later. When Edward Beckwith, the boy's uncle, visited High Seas to console the grieving family, he suffered a terrible fall in a mountain climbing accident. 6 months after the death of his son, Brunau contracted pneumonia and died inside the mansion in 2 days. Reporting on this, the Bar Harbor Times described his death as the, quote, last in a series of tragedies that have seemed to befall the Brunau home ever since the handsome villa was constructed nearby. The surviving family members ran for their lives, leaving the residence and never looking back. High Seas stood empty for a few years until Eva Van Cortlandt Hawks purchased the estate in 1928. Soon afterward, her only daughter died, yet Hawks held on to the place. Despite her attachment to the mansion, something about it always frightened her, a lurking dread that would return in the night, especially when a fog rolled in off Schooner Head. She eventually employed a night watchman to guard the house while she slept. It was Eva Hawks who changed the name of the place from Meadowbrook, its original name, to High Seas. Hawks herself died one evening inside the mansion, and it later became the property of Jackson Labs. Since then, the recurring death of hikers on the precipice trail directly above High Seas continues the deathly legacy of the place. In records and accounts going back centuries, a force of evil weighs down on the landscape around Schooner Head, and the land around it casts a spell of damnation that chills the visitor to the bone. Along with the fog and the darkness, a feeling of dread always returns to claim these tormented shores. Hey guys, Reaper here. I just wanted to thank you all for either watching or listening, whether you're on YouTube or Spotify. This story was brought to you from Ghosts of Acadia, written by Marcus Labrizzi and published by Down East Books. I wanted to give both of them a huge thank you and a huge shout out for letting me bring this book to you guys, whether it's in audio form on Spotify or in video form on YouTube. If you want to check out the book for yourself, I will leave a link down below in the description. in both Spotify and on YouTube, so you can go check out the book for yourself and support the original author and original publisher. New story coming out tomorrow night. And until then, remember, sleep well, my friends.